Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today's guests have some incredibly innovative products, and I'm excited to have them on. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Emily, can you tell us about yourself, who you are, and what your title is?
Sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Emily Stolarcyk, and I am the Sustainability Director of Business Development at Digimarc Corporation.
Thank you so much. And Eric, Mr. Ferguson.
Yeah, I'm Eric Ferguson. Happy to be here. I'm account director for food and beverage at Digimarc. I've been with the company for about 2 years.
It's a great company, and I've been excited to have you guys on for a long time. So let's start first with a little bit of background. And Emily, you want to go first and just kind of tell us, how'd you get into packaging? It's a unique field, and I like to hear people's stories.
Yeah, sure. So my background is more from the way of sustainability. I actually spent years working for a smaller environmental nonprofit in Alaska. Then I decided to get my MBA in sustainable business, and I went on to work right out of grad school for Dow Chemical. So Dow Chemical, well known in the plastic and packaging space.
I've heard of them, yeah.
Yeah, so I was a sustainability leader for Dow Chemical, and then decided, 2020 was pretty transformative, so I decided to try something different. And I heard about Digimarc, and I was really excited about the technology that we have and its ability to revolutionize current systems when we talk about packaging and sustainability. And so I was lucky enough to land the job, and here I am.
Excellent. And Eric?
My career started in the mid 90s. I guess I was at Clemson University studying graphic communications, which was not specifically focused on packaging, but I kind of got hooked into packaging during my internships that are required. So I did 2 internships at both at packaging firms and have been in the packaging field ever since. So a long time.
That's a great packaging school. And I think you're the first person who's been on the show that said they went to that school, but didn't study.
Go Tigers.
That didn't study packaging, because a lot of people from that school have been on the show. So it's a great show.
Yeah, printing was kind of my discipline, right? But it's expanded quite a bit, just like everybody's careers kind of get broader as they go. Yeah.
We all tend to do this and then this and then this. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to make it fun, right?
Keep it interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Digimarc. What makes you guys special? What makes you unique?
I'll take that, I guess, Emily, if that's okay. So not a lot of companies, I think, Cory, were founded by an astronomer, especially in the packaging space. Digimarc was started. Yeah, not that I'm aware of. But you are in Portland, right?
Yes.
So Digimarc was founded in Portland in the mid 90s, so around when I graduated.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, by a guy named Jeff Rhodes, who was an astronomer, and he was looking at ways as the internet was really kind of rapidly sort of coming as a commercial solution during that time to start protecting digital images. And so started filing patents and investigating, new technologies for the protections of those digital images. The business really grew into kind of 2 different sort of high security uses at that time. One was for various currencies around the world to make sure that those are not copied. And then the second is around driver's licenses and other kind of physical assets like that. So started with digital images, grew slowly over time into physical assets. I think it was about 2014 or 2015 when we first started really getting involved in packaging directly. So marking packaging and the notion of connected packaging really started around that time. So leveraging watermarks for packaging was a really novel way to do that. Yeah, there's 3 real benefits there, right? So a watermark is, number one, is covert, like machines see it. Cory is not supposed to see it,
right?
But machines do. The second is that because it's covert, it can kind of be ubiquitous within the design. We can put it on any panel, or throughout the printed kind of layer, which means that number 3, it can be pretty robust because that sort of signal is repeated throughout the design. So you can kind of think about it like, if I've got something that's an object that's a cylinder, like this polar can, I'm not hunting for that one location of the code. The code is everywhere. It's just not seen by humans. So that's really the basis of where Digimarc is. We've been transformed quite a bit over the last 2 years since Emily and I both joined. There was a real change kind of in the way the business was kind of going to the market. I think some of that is driven by digital transformation largely, and some of it was out of necessity. So this merged with the company Everything that has just occurred. So we acquired Everything in January officially of this year, makes us a cloud software company, right? So On top of being packaging people, we're now subject matter experts in cloud computing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like it's a perfect fit, a vertical fit for you guys. Incredible. Do you want to speak to that merger, Emily, or do you want to speak to what is a digital watermark and how does it work?
Yeah, we'll start there and then we can go more into the merger. So Eric said a bit about what a digital watermark is. So digital watermarks are visually imperceptible. We try to stay away from the word invisible because then someone will say, well, I can see it. So visually imperceptible, and they're about the size of a postage stamp. So they can change a little bit bigger or smaller depending on what they're put on. And then they're replicated throughout an image. So as Eric said, they're kind of put around and they're covert. So they're almost hidden in the packaging. So what that does is it can basically turn any object, provided that it's not handmade or grown, so any man-made object as well as digital files, it can turn that into an IoT object. So now that object is intelligent and we can do all these different things with it. So one of the things that we can do is we can connect that code to a database, and that database can have virtually unlimited attributes or categories, and what we can kind of do and slice and dice and categorize those objects. So when we think about it, they're imperceptible to human eye, but they can be seen with machine vision. So whether that is a barcode scanner at a point of sale or your mobile phone, or now as we're getting into recycling, that can be that technology to read a digital watermark can be put into recycling setting. So the packaging says to the camera, hi, I'm this is what I am, this is where I came from, these are all the things about me. And then we apply them in two different ways. So in packaging, they can be applied in many ways, but just for packaging, they can go into the print. So this is a subtle modulation of the artwork, really the dot colors. So if it's black, you can make it a little bit purple. So when a machine sees it, it can see what the difference is. And then really my more area of expertise is taking that and applying that same sort of watermark, but not in a color variation, but instead in a texture variation directly onto the 3D substrate of the plastic itself. So if you think about the trend to go labelless, right? So we want to get rid of labels. If we talk about the issues with in recycling, like PET shrink sleeves,
Right.
We don't need those anymore. So you can go, or if it's maybe a meat tray or something that doesn't have a barcode on it, it's not a GTIN or a SKU, we can identify these objects without needing a barcode. So we can apply them in print, and then we can also apply them directly to the substrate as a texture that you can't really see or feel. And then there's all these different things that we do with it, depending on the type of plastic molding, the type of resin, we change the depth. And so we can make it so you can maybe see it more if that's what the customer wants, or you can see it less if that's what if they want to go for invisibility or something like that. So there's all of these different variations, or what we call enhancement strategies, of ways to apply this digital watermark.
I like that. Enhancement strategies. That makes a lot of sense. You mentioned an acronym I wasn't familiar with, IoT. Can you explain that?
Oh, sure. Internet of Things. Yeah.
Internet
so
of
now
Things. Okay.
Internet of Things. So yeah, my tech mother would be very proud that I that I use the lingo. So yeah, it's just a connected object now. It's connected. So in our case, most of the time we talk about it in a consumer engagement setting. So you can take your smartphone, just like a QR code, think of this similar like an invisible QR code,
Right.
And you can scan the can or piece of packaging. And for us, we can actually take you to any sort of customizable digital experience. So your customers can be directed to a website where they could read about how to use the product, how to dispose of the product, how to buy more of the product. Really, again, limitless options.
Cory, this is why I'm so jazzed about this, right? Like kind of coming from this space of being, a printer at heart and then a packager also, right? In my career, this is a new discipline, right? Where we're creating a data carrier out of the package. So what data do we want to imbue into the package? What data do we want to harvest from it? Like that data science bit of it is brand new. And it should be really exciting for kind of everybody that's in the packaging field. I think even for students that are coming out, right?
I think it'll eventually be required. And for you guys to be a leader in this space, good for you. I mean, wow. With the onset of extended producer responsibility, this is going to be critical. Do you guys agree? Do you think that's part of the issue here?
We certainly hope so. So we are We are very tied into what's going on in Europe with EPR, and then we're looking at the development of different EPR schemes globally and how we're going to tie into that. I mean, the big benefit that we see now, you can ideally, with our solutions on packaging, brands would be able to drastically reduce their EPR fees. So but we need a little bit more systemization before then. Right now, the EPR field is pretty fragmented. So we'll see how that's developing over the next couple of years.
That's a very kind way of saying it. Yeah.
The basis of EPR, though, right, isn't just like, what am I producing, but what's happening to that, at the end of life. And if you don't have visibility to it, that's a big problem. So that is something that we need to solve.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's interesting that you mentioned the cost of it, Emily. I haven't really thought about it as it's going to cost companies. I thought about what are the positive effects to the environment, and both are incredibly important, but that makes a lot of sense too.
Well, with this technology, you can now, so there was a recent press release with our results in the detection side, and we didn't get into this, but on packaging that has a digital watermark, when it's coming through the waste stream, so this is in a mixed waste setting on a belt moving at either 3 meters per second or 4.5 meters per second, the detection rate of our packaging is actually 99% across both flexibles and rigids. And then the ejection, so is it correctly identified? We call that's the detection side. And then is it correctly sorted? We call that ejection. And so for that, we are somewhere, threshold is 95%. So we're at 95% both ejection and then purity, so we can reduce contamination in a recycling setting. So when we think about not only what these companies can do, so there's a huge gap right now with the EPRs, like if you produce it, you should pay because you're polluting. But when we think about applying a digital watermark, you can now correctly identify 99% of what is coming into this recycling stream setting.
That's awesome. Exciting. That's huge.
And by the way, that rate is based on packaging that's been crushed. It's been mixed with waste, soiled. It's got stuff all over it, right? And so that's why it's important for it to be kind of ubiquitous or throughout the design, because if it's just in one little spot and you squash a can, then you won't be able to detect it. So
absolutely. I was at Waste 360 last year. I spoke there about sustainable packaging, and they had several machines there that sorted plastic on a line. And it was like a puff of smoke, like that or a puff of air. Yeah, it was fascinating. So you guys are going to be, they're going to love what you're doing, because
we hope so.
It's going to be even easier for them to sort the material. Well done.
Yeah, and so with this, I neglected to say this before, but when we were talking about the database that you can assign, so a big one with sustainable packaging is identifying correctly food versus non-food packaging, because we want packaging that's been used for food to go back into food packaging, and we don't want non-food packaging going into food packaging. So a big one for us is that ability to really easily and correctly sort food versus non-food packaging in a recycling setting.
Well, that's excellent. And anything that increases and improves recycling rates, all for. So well done. So let's talk about the Holy Grail 2.0. I can't wait to discuss this with you. Which one of you wants to tell us what that means?
Emily's gonna,
Emily, tell us what it means and how are you involved with it?
Yeah, so Holy Grail is an initiative by AIM, or the European Brands Association, and it is powered by the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. So this is a collaborative effort, and it's designated to solve one of the largest obstacles facing plastic recycling, which is this insufficient sorting at recycling centers or recycling facilities, so MRFs or PERFs. It is 3 test phases over 3 years. We're in the final year now, 2022, and we have 4 countries. So there's Belgium, Denmark, France, and Germany are all participating. There are roughly 160 members of this effort. So it's an initiative, and there's a large membership. About 40 of those members are some of your largest CPGs globally. So we have Procter & Gamble leading the way, Unilever, Mondelez, some of the largest companies out there who make the most packaging in the world. And then we are also working with the two largest sortation equipment companies in the world. So this is Tomra, located in Germany, and Palank, located in France. So we're all coming together to, one, enhance the packaging with a digital watermark, and then build these detection units that would be deployed in the recycling facilities to then identify and sort the packaging that has the watermark on it. And we've finished phase 2 at the end of 2021, and we had enhanced roughly 260 SKUs, so different types of packaging. About 3/4 of that was flexible packaging, and 1/4 of it was the rigid packaging, so all different types of rigid substrates. And we had done about 120,000 pieces of plastic. So we're testing this, and when we talk about these ejection rates and detection rates of 99 and 95%, that's what we're doing on those hundreds of SKUs, over 100,000 pieces of packaging coming through a waste-like setting. So we're mixing it, soiling it, crushing it, putting it on a belt, running it underneath these cameras, and then correctly sorting it. So it's a big test, multiple years, multiple countries, many diverse stakeholders. So that is the Holy Grail 2.0 initiative.
That's excellent. Eric, did you want to speak to it as well?
No, I just think it's really, obviously this work is being done in Europe, but EPR legislation is happening globally. So there are a lot of eyes on this program. And these are multinationals that are stakeholders in it. So don't just pigeonhole it as a project in Europe, right? It's something that we know that has application and use or just around the world.
Absolutely agree. And it seems like the people that are successful with this kind of a program will spread it amongst the world as it becomes successful. My friend Chandru runs a PET recycling facility in South Africa, and they started extended producer responsibility last November. And they've seen major impact from this legislature over there in a mostly a very positive way, with people actually wanting to recycle more, and because there's value tied to that material now.
And theirs actually has a criminal penalty for not for gross, I guess, misuse or fraud, cases of fraud. So that one's particularly, I think, harsh.
Wow.
But yeah,
he didn't mention that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We heard about it. Eric and I were on some calls with different people in South Africa when this was happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're aware.
So do you think the most recycled material, I believe, is PET for plastic? Do you think most of those soda and drink containers will have a Digimarc marking on them? Or do we already know how to recycle those and we're focusing on other materials?
It's a great question, and there are certainly people in both camps. So we do have some stakeholders in Europe who manufacture PET bottles saying, hey, our recycling rates are already really high. We don't see the point of a digital watermark. So there are those people who feel that way. And by all means, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, we know that it's not all recycled. So maybe it is the most common resin recycled, but the recycling rate of that material is far under, it's not as good as it could be. So if a digital watermark can get you to, again, 99 or 95%, then that's where we want to be. So yes, and that would be my answer to that.
Let me throw out too, and not to get too big brother around this, but when you're tracking these things in the recycling stream, right? You're not just tracking objects, you're kind of tracking behaviors too. And so if you want to change behavior, you have to measure it in some way. So there are a lot of different kind of notions around this, but I think that sort of measurement or qualification around behavior is really important, especially for marketers. So there's a specific use case here, I think, for packaging engineers and sustainability people, but there's an opportunity for marketers too to understand their consumers a little bit better. So there's a lot of value.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about it from a not just sustainable, but from a sales perspective. Well done. Now, could this be beneficial to a state, say in the United States, like Oregon, that has a bottle deposit? Could you put that on the container somehow to show the recycling facility that, hey, this is worth 10 cents, pull it out? Is that something
Yeah. So we've
possible?
definitely we discuss different deposit return schemes often and need to think about how to best place a digital watermark in that system so that it adds to it. So I think again, of course, with packaging, there are a lot of diverse opinions and stakeholders
Yeah.
about what's best to do. And you have states like Oregon and states where I am in New York, but then you have other states that are maybe resistant to a deposit return scheme. So yes, a digital watermark has an immense amount of value across many use cases. So we hope to see this deployed. I mean, we also hope to see that. I know a bill was introduced at the federal level for a federal deposit return. So I hope that we see that in the United States. Whether we do or whether we don't, I still think and very much believe that there is a case for digital watermarking here.
Yeah, I would suggest too that some of the better deposit return schemes are looking at serialized payloads for that. They want to know, all right, did that bottle specifically get a deposit paid, and therefore I need to pay this individual person the return on it. That's reliant on some digital printing or digital technology to be able to serialize that in a unique way. And so some of this is still being developed, right? So these are things that we're utilizing brand new technology and pushing the limits of technology to be able to do, which is another exciting thing for people that work in packaging, because packaging people are problem solvers.
We are. I agree. That's a great point. Yeah, it's something we've been trying to do for many years. They say, my friend Bob from Spring just published a report. States that have bottled deposits have recycling rates that are more than double of states that don't for that material, for aluminum cans, for, plastic bottles. So that, to me, if we could do that nationally, just makes sense.
Changing behavior, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Here in Oregon, we were the first ones to do it. And I don't remember last time I saw a bottle or can in a ditch. They get picked up. They're valuable. So it makes sense. Well, tell us about what you guys think. What's the future? What's coming next that we should all be aware of and be ready for?
Well, we've touched on it today. So I would say connected packaging,
Yeah.
I think is a big one. I believe that the moment that a major CPG sees the benefit of a connected package, that everyone is going to want their packages developed. Nobody's not going to want that anymore.
Now, for our audience, can you say what CPG means?
Oh, sorry,
Good.
consumer packaged goods. Yep. Yeah. So
not everybody's a packaging expert.
Yeah,
so.
sorry. We learned to speak in acronym. Yeah, so CPG, consumer packaged goods. So the companies that make the majority of packaging in the world, or
Right.
food, specifically food packaging.
Right.
So I would say connected and intelligent packaging is going to be a huge part of the future of packaging.
Yep.
We've also touched briefly on consumer engagement. So as a consumer, if I can scan, and in this, we already do this today with QR codes, but I think that this is only going to become more common. And we've certainly talked with groups on, with our technology, we could have somebody with their smartphone scan their product, and it can tell them whether or not that is recyclable based on their geolocation. So if you're in one location, hey, your municipality accepts that as part of a curbside collection program. And another is, no, don't put that in there. That's going to actually be a source of contamination in the recycling stream. So that's
excellent.
Yeah. And then all the things that Eric was mentioning about marketing and tracking behavior. So I think, again, when we talk about consumer engagement, connected packaging, these are trends. I also think when we start doing this on the packaging, brands will have much more visibility on what is actually happening with their packaging. So with our technology, we can tell a brand how many of this type of your package was recycled, where, and when. So they already know some of this data because they have their tracking point of sale. But now we can go back to, say, Unilever and say, this many of your shampoo bottles were recycled in this amount of time in this location. So that's something we can do. All by the actual product. So not just a PET bottle versus an HDPE bottle. We can actually tell it was this particular bottle.
Yeah, think about the implication of that in food and beverage, right? Like, I mean, I know there's a best before date, or there's a lot of discussion about best before dates and what they actually mean. But what if a brand really knew, like, how long that product was actually in a consumer's hands or went through that journey and finally wound its way to recycling? what would the implications be for food waste, right? If you could really specify exactly how long that was in the market. I don't know. I think the implications for sustainability are far beyond just recycling and compostability. For the short term, I do think that consumer engagement is the thing. I've been dying to have like a scannable, package that tells me what to do with the entire thing. Do I need to, not just me, right, but other people?
Right.
I mean, we're packaging professionals, and half
Yeah.
the time I look at something and I double check, like, is this,
Right.
do these plastic rings that hold my cans together, I know it's recyclable material, a monomaterial, but it has to go into the landfill. It can't be recycled because it's going to gum up my system. I know this as a packaging person, but what other average consumers know that? Or do I leave the cap on or off? Do I pull the shrink sleeve on or like leave it on or pull it off, right? So there, I think if you think more holistically about the packaging system rather than just individual materials, we have an opportunity right now to do a better job educating consumers. And that's sort of a personal mission.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure you guys get phone calls and text messages like I do, like, "Hey, is this recyclable? What should I do with this?"
It happens every Christmas, right? Is this wrapping paper? Because that one wasn't, because it had the little, glitter on it.
Right.
Same kind of thing.
I want to add, if I can, one more thing about the future of packaging that we talk about a lot. And I think if you're a packaging company, you also maybe think about this a lot. We either, if it's voluntary or mandated, we are seeing the push to incorporate more PCR, some post-consumer resin, recycled plastic, into packaging. And we already know that for all of the companies out there who are saying either by 2025, we're going to include some percentage. So either we're going to voluntarily do this or we're being mandated to do this, that we have to include, 25% or 50% or whatever it is. So if you add all of those companies together, the amount of post-consumer resin required is far below the supply today. Right. So we see this huge gap. With digital watermarks, not only now will you increase the volume of that post-consumer recycled content, you'll also increase the purity. So you have more of it and it's more pure to go back into your packaging. So we have added performance, versus your traditional recycled material. So things don't have to be downcycled as much. Right. So that's going to be a big part of the future is meeting those mandated or those voluntary PCR inclusion percentages. And then how do they actually get there?
You're exactly right. It's a huge delta from where we are today to where we want to be. And where are we going to get all this recycled material? And it sounds like Digimarc is a big part of that solution. Well done.
Yeah, we hope so.
So how do we get in touch with you guys? Eric, you want to tell us what's the best way to reach out to you?
You can find me on LinkedIn always, right? Or you can email me directly at Eric, that's ERIC .Ferguson, that's .FERGUSON at Digimarc, DIGIMARC.com.
And you, Emily?
Yeah,
LinkedIn?
So I say LinkedIn's ideal. My last name is tricky to spell. So if you look up Digimarc, you can see the people who work there and it will pop up.
I'll put it in the show notes so people can just click on it and get to the
that
page.
would be great.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you, Landsberg Aurora, for sponsoring. We truly appreciate it. If you're listening, take a second to review it and share it with your friends. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next episode. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Cory. Yeah.